We live in a world that's louder than ever. Everyone is talking, everyone is posting, everyone wants to be seen. And in all that noise, it's easy to assume that the world is watching us too, that people care about our struggles, that they care when we fail, that they notice every setback we go through. But here's the truth, most of them don't, not out of cruelty, not out of malice, simply because they are busy with their own lives. Nobody truly cares, and that is one of the most freeing realizations you can have. When you understand that most people are not thinking about you as much as you think they are, you gain back something powerful, your focus. You stop living for their approval. You stop measuring your pace against theirs, and you start doing the one thing that actually changes everything, working hard for you. It sounds harsh, but it's actually the most honest and liberating idea. The world doesn't owe you applause, recognition, or sympathy. You have to build yourself, earn your way forward, not for likes, not for praise, not for validation, but because you understand the value of pushing your own limits. Let's talk about effort. Hard work isn't flashy. It's not what gets the most attention, but it's what builds your foundation. When you work hard, really work hard, you begin to build a kind of discipline that doesn't rely on motivation or mood. You learn how to keep showing up, even when nobody's clapping for you. That is the work that transforms your identity, not just what you do, but who you become. When you focus on you, you stop chasing comparisons. You stop wasting your energy on things outside your control. You stop feeling like the victim of someone else's success. That mindset shift is critical, because as long as you believe someone owes you support or fairness or shortcuts, you will wait forever. And while you're waiting, someone else is building, someone else is learning, someone else is taking small steps forward unnoticed, and one day they'll be far ahead. There's another layer to this idea of nobody cares. It means you must take responsibility for yourself, for your energy, your habits, your direction. You are the project, you are the asset. And if you won't invest in yourself, why should anyone else? Working hard doesn't mean burnout, it means intention. It means showing up daily with the mindset that even 1% better is worth it. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean isolation. It means choosing your priorities wisely. It means saying no to distractions so you can say yes to progress. The truth is, the people who will eventually care, the ones who notice, who appreciate, who are impacted by what you do, only show up after in the work. So don't wait for them. Build quietly, improve relentlessly, and know that your effort compounds even when no one sees it. So nobody cares about your excuses. Nobody cares about your comfort zone. Nobody cares about how unfair it feels, but they will care about your results. They will care about what you build. And by then, it won't matter if they do or not, because you will care. You will know what it took. You will understand that working hard and focusing on you wasn't selfish. It was necessary. 5 keynotes of the speech. Most people aren't focused on your struggles. They're consumed by their own, and realizing that frees you to stop seeking approval and start focusing on your own progress. Hard work done consistently and quietly builds character and discipline, not just success. And it's more important than momentary motivation or recognition. Focusing on yourself means taking full responsibility for your direction, energy, and habits. You are your most important project. Success doesn't come from being noticed. It comes from showing up every day, even when no one sees or applauds, and that effort compounds. No one cares about your excuses, but they will respect your results. Work not to be seen, but to become someone you're proud of. Most people aren't focused on your struggles. They're consumed by their own, and realizing that frees you to stop seeking approval and start focusing on your own progress. This truth, while it may seem disheartening at first, is one of the most liberating ideas a person can understand. It reorients your perspective. We often move through life under the illusion that the world is watching us, judging our every move, analyzing our missteps, and quietly gossiping about our failures. In reality, everyone is too absorbed in their own life, their own set of problems, insecurities, and responsibilities to dedicate that much attention to someone else. Everyone is the center of their own story, just like you are the center of yours. It's natural to want recognition. It's part of the human experience to crave validation. From a young age, we're conditioned to perform and then wait for praise. We look for approval from parents, teachers, friends, and eventually society, but that approval doesn't come in the way we expect. The world isn't built to hand out applause for effort. It's built around outcomes, impact, and often visibility. And even then, what one person notices, another ignores. This inconsistency is a sign that depending on others' attention for your self-worth is a dangerous game. You have to ask yourself how much of your energy is spent trying to be seen, trying to be understood, trying to be validated by people who may not even be looking in your direction. How many decisions are influenced not by what is right for you, but by how others might perceive them? When you start to tally up the emotional cost of constantly seeking approval, you realize it's a trap that stalls your growth, a trap that keeps you performing rather than progressing. When you internalize the idea that most people don't care about your struggles because they're facing their own, something shifts. Instead of being disappointed, you begin to feel lighter. You understand that you're not living under a microscope, that most people are not thinking about your mistakes or your shortcomings nearly as much as you think they are. In fact, most have already forgotten. They're too wrapped up in their own fears, deadlines, goals, and anxieties. And that creates space for you, space to focus on your journey, your decisions, your growth without the weight of perceived judgment. Think of it this way. When someone fails publicly, they might feel like everyone is watching, whispering, mocking. But in reality, those observers might think about it for 5 minutes before moving on to their next concern. The same happens with success. You might accomplish something incredible and others might clap, admire, or congratulate you. But even that moment is fleeting in their minds. That's why you cannot rely on others to sustain your motivation. You have to work as if no one's watching, because most of the time no one is. This is not a pessimistic view. It's a wake-up call. It teaches you that your commitment to growth must be internal. The strongest drivers in life are the ones that come from within purpose, integrity, consistency. These are not dependent on audience size or the number of likes you receive. They are built quietly in solitude, where most of the meaningful work happens. When you stop waiting for the world to care, you can finally start to care for yourself the way you should have all along. Another powerful aspect of this realization is that it removes the fear of judgment. If no one is watching that closely, then failing becomes less frightening. If everyone is dealing with their own problems, then your flaws aren't the center of attention. This frees you to experiment, to learn, to try again. You stop asking, what will they think? And start asking, what do I need to do next? That shift makes you more resilient, more focused, more honest about your own needs and weaknesses. And when you begin to work from that place of self-honesty, progress becomes more authentic. You're no longer performing for applause. You're working for improvement. You're not climbing a ladder someone else built. You're building your own. You become less reactive and more intentional. You recognize that self-improvement is not a performance, it's a process. So many people delay their growth because they are waiting for someone to care enough to push them, to cheer for them, to acknowledge them. But what if that never comes? What if no one shows up with that external motivation? Then the only thing left is you. And if you can accept that, if you can internalize the idea that no one else is responsible for believing in you more than you believe in yourself, you become unstoppable. Because when the noise fades, when the distractions die down, and when the spotlight moves on, the one person left is you. Your discipline, your habits, your effort. And that is exactly where your power lies. Hard work done consistently and quietly builds character and discipline, not just success. And it's more important than momentary motivation or recognition. In today's world, there is a widespread obsession with instant results. People want overnight transformations, quick rewards, and fast validation. But the truth is, nothing meaningful is built in a rush. The most powerful and lasting changes happen not in the spotlight, but in the quiet, unseen hours of disciplined effort. It's the commitment to keep going, even when you don't feel like it, even when no one is watching, even when the results haven't shown up yet, that shapes who you become. Motivation is often misunderstood. It's great when it's there, that rush of energy, that feeling of purpose, the sudden clarity about what you want to achieve. But motivation is like a spark. It ignites quickly and burns bright, but it rarely lasts long enough to carry you through the entire journey. That's why relying on it is unreliable. When the spark fades, you need something stronger to keep moving forward. That something is discipline. Discipline is the ability to do the work regardless of how you feel in the moment. It's waking up early to train even when you're tired. It's studying when others are relaxing. It's choosing progress over comfort day after day. Hard work, done quietly and without constant need for attention, is what builds the internal structure of a person. It doesn't just lead to results, it builds resilience. It teaches you how to delay gratification. It shows you how to be patient with your process. And most importantly, it forces you to confront yourself, your habits, your excuses, your limits. When you choose to keep working in silence, not because someone is watching, but because you've made a commitment to yourself, that's when real transformation happens. There's a misconception that success comes from being in the right place at the right time or having access to the right people. While those things can help, they're not the foundation. The foundation is always work. Consistent, focused, honest work. And the people who sustain success over time are not the ones who worked the hardest when everyone was watching. They are the ones who worked just as hard when no one was. That quiet grind, the one that doesn't make it to social media, that doesn't receive applause, is what separates those who talk about goals from those who achieve them. There is something powerful about doing things no one sees. It's in those invisible efforts that confidence is built. Not confidence based on praise or public approval, but a deeper, more durable kind of confidence. The kind that comes from knowing you showed up for yourself, that you honored your commitment, that you pushed past resistance. You don't need to advertise it because the work itself begins to change your mindset, your habits, your results. The world often celebrates the final product, the award, the achievement, the success story. But the real story, the one that matters, happens long before that moment. It happens when you're tired but you don't quit, when you're discouraged but still show up, when you fail and get up again. These moments may never be seen by others, but they are felt in every future success. Every strong result is built on 1,000 quiet repetitions. Working hard in silence is not about hiding. It's about focusing. It's about pouring your energy into the task itself rather than the performance of effort. Because there is a difference between appearing to work hard and actually working hard. The former may win temporary praise, but the latter builds a foundation you can stand on for life. It's less glamorous, but infinitely more rewarding. And over time, the results of that discipline compound. You don't just improve in one area, you become more capable overall. You develop grit, patience, and a tolerance for discomfort. These qualities extend into every area of your life. They affect how you respond to challenges, how you handle setbacks, and how you recover from failure. You begin to trust yourself more, not because others tell you you're doing well, but because you've seen what you're capable of when no one is looking. The truth is, if you're only working when others are watching, you'll never reach your full potential, because the best version of you is not built in front of an audience. It's built in the early mornings, the late nights, the quiet hours where no one else knows how hard you're trying. That's where the real growth happens. That's where the strongest foundations are laid. And that's what will carry you long after the applause fades and the spotlight moves on. Focusing on yourself means taking full responsibility for your direction, energy, and habits. You are your most important project. This isn't about being selfish. It's about becoming accountable. Far too many people spend years pointing fingers at their circumstances, their environment, or the people around them. They believe that their success, happiness, or progress depends on someone else changing or something else improving. But the moment you shift your mindset from blaming to owning, that's when things truly begin to change. Taking responsibility for your direction means being clear about where you're going. It's easy to drift through life on autopilot, reacting to whatever comes your way, following the crowd, or simply doing what's expected of you. But when you take ownership of your path, you stop waiting for life to hand you something. You start creating it. You become intentional about your goals, your values, and your time. You stop chasing things that don't align with who you are and start moving in a direction that reflects what you truly want. That clarity doesn't come from external noise. It comes from internal reflection. And once you get it, your decisions begin to carry more weight, more purpose. Your energy is one of your most valuable resources. And yet people waste it every day, arguing about things they can't control, scrolling endlessly through distractions, comparing themselves to people who don't even know they exist. When you focus on yourself, you start to notice how your energy is being used. You begin to protect it. You stop giving it away to things that drain you and start directing it toward things that build you. This doesn't happen overnight. It requires awareness. It means catching yourself when you fall into patterns of negativity, procrastination, or resentment. It means choosing to redirect your focus again and again toward growth, not drama. Habits are the building blocks of your future. They are the invisible systems shaping your life every day. And whether you realize it or not, your current habits are producing your current results. When you take full responsibility, you stop blaming time, talent, or luck, and you start examining your routines. Are they moving you forward? Are they aligned with your goals? Are they strengthening or weakening your foundation? These are questions only you can answer, and the answers require honesty. It's not always easy to admit when we are the ones standing in our own way, but that awareness is the first step toward change. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean ignoring others. It means refusing to let others dictate your value or your decisions. It means understanding that your growth cannot depend on whether someone else believes in you, encourages you, or understands your journey. It means choosing to work even when you feel alone, to improve even when no one notices, and to move forward even when the path isn't clear. Because the truth is, no one can walk your path for you. No one else can do the work. No one else can fight the battles inside your mind. That's your responsibility, and it's also your opportunity. The more you commit to your own development, the more you begin to attract clarity, strength, and resilience. You begin to realize that the external world can't give you what you refuse to give yourself. Confidence, peace, purpose, these don't come from the outside. They are built from within. And the only way to build them is by doing the work, the mental work, the emotional work, the physical work. Day by day, choice by choice, habit by habit. Taking responsibility also means being honest about your mistakes. It's easy to make excuses, to blame timing, luck, or other people. But that doesn't create change. What creates change is looking in the mirror and saying, this is on me, and I can do better. That moment of truth is where growth begins. It's uncomfortable, but it's empowering, because if the problem is within your control, so is the solution. You are the constant in your life. Circumstances will change. People will come and go. Opportunities will rise and fall. But the one person who will always be there is you. And if you don't take care of yourself, invest in yourself, and lead yourself, no one else will do it for you. You have to become the kind of person who doesn't wait for life to improve. You improve your life by how you live it, how you think, and how you act every day. When you see yourself as your most important project, you begin to treat yourself with the seriousness, discipline, and care you deserve. You don't ignore your weaknesses. You address them. You don't wish for growth. You work for it. You don't look for shortcuts. You build strong foundations. And over time, you become someone who doesn't just react to life, but someone who creates a life worth living. Success doesn't come from being noticed. It comes from showing up every day, even when no one sees or applauds, and that effort compounds. In a world where visibility often seems to equal value, It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that your work only matters if someone is watching. But real success is almost never built in the spotlight. It's built in the shadows, in the quiet moments when no one is paying attention, in the days when you question if it's even worth continuing, and in the countless small decisions that accumulate into something meaningful over time. The people who achieve real, lasting success are not necessarily the loudest, the flashiest, or the most praised. They are often the ones who simply kept going. They didn't wait for external validation to take action. They didn't let a lack of recognition stop them from putting in the effort. They didn't rely on applause to stay committed. They understood something fundamental, that consistency, even when it feels invisible, is more powerful than any single moment of attention. Showing up every day requires a deep sense of purpose. It's not about dramatic leaps forward, it's about incremental progress. It's about doing the hard thing again and again, even when it's boring, even when it's uncomfortable, and even when the rewards seem far off. That level of commitment doesn't come from wanting to impress others. It comes from an inner standard you hold for yourself. A standard that says your work matters, even when no one sees it. That you matter, even if no one's cheering. When you work from this place, you begin to build momentum. You begin to trust yourself more. You begin to find rhythm in your routines and strengthen your discipline. The effort starts to compound quietly at first. You might not see it in a week or a month, but keep going long enough and the change becomes undeniable. You become more skilled. You become more focused. You become more resilient. And eventually the results begin to show, not because you chased recognition, but because you honored the process. There's a trap in chasing visibility. When you're focused on being seen, you start performing instead of progressing. You make decisions based on optics rather than integrity. You do things to look successful instead of to become successful. That mindset leads to burnout, insecurity, and emptiness because it's rooted in external validation. But when you shift the focus to simply showing up and doing the work, regardless of who's watching, your motivation becomes unshakable. You're no longer dependent on fleeting attention. You're fueled by your own purpose. It's important to understand that almost every great achievement you admire was born out of invisible effort. The athlete's victory began in years of early mornings and lonely training. The entrepreneur's breakthrough came after countless late nights and failed attempts. The writer's masterpiece was written sentence by sentence, draft by draft, often in silence and solitude. You don't see the process, only the outcome. But the process is where the real transformation happens. This is why discipline matters more than inspiration. Inspiration fades, but discipline keeps you grounded. It's what gets you through the days when progress feels slow, when motivation is gone, and when doubt creeps in. Discipline is the quiet force that pushes you to keep going. And it's through this persistent effort that mastery is born. Not suddenly, not loudly, but gradually and often without an audience. The world may not notice your effort right away, and sometimes not at all. But that doesn't make it any less valuable. In fact, the most meaningful accomplishments are the ones that took time, effort, and consistency without needing a spotlight to sustain them. You become someone others eventually admire, not because you sought their approval, but because you kept showing up and doing the work they weren't willing to do. And when the recognition finally comes, if it comes, it won't define you because it wasn't what you were working for in the first place. What will define you is the character you built, the discipline you developed, and the persistence you showed when no one was looking. That's what real success is made of. Not the applause, but the endurance. Not the moment, but the journey. Not the performance, but the process. Showing up again and again, not for them, for you. Because you understand that the work compounds, and in time, it changes everything. No one cares about your excuses, but they will respect your results. Work not to be seen, but to become someone you're proud of. In life, it's easy to fall into the pattern of justification. When things don't go as planned, when we fall behind or when we fail to show up fully, the mind quickly crafts reasons. The schedule was too tight, the timing wasn't right, other people got in the way, or we just didn't feel ready. And while these excuses might make us feel better temporarily, they don't move us forward. They don't change our circumstances. They don't produce results. What does? Taking full responsibility and showing up regardless of how imperfect the situation may be. Excuses often feel like protection. They shield us from shame, from judgment, even from our own disappointment. But they also prevent growth. Every time we choose an excuse over effort, we give away a small part of our potential. We accept stagnation in place of progress. Over time, those small moments of giving in become habits, and those habits shape our lives. When we continually rationalize our lack of effort, we drift further from the version of ourselves we could become. People, by and large, don't want to hear why something didn't happen. They want to see what you did with what you had. They respect the outcome, the work, the perseverance, not the justification for its absence. And this isn't a harsh judgment. It's simply the reality of how value is recognized in the world. In any field, in any endeavor, the person who delivers results earns credibility. They may not be the most talented, the most connected, or the most educated, but they are the ones who took consistent action and finished what they started. That's why working to become someone you're proud of is so much more powerful than working to impress others. External praise is unreliable. It changes with trends, it fades with time, and it rarely satisfies for long. But internal pride, That comes from discipline, from integrity, from pushing through when it would have been easier to quit. It comes from knowing you gave your best, not because someone was watching, but because you refuse to let yourself settle for less than you're capable of. There's something incredibly empowering about holding yourself to your own standard. It means you don't need to explain yourself to anyone. You don't need to defend your choices, justify your timeline, or compare your progress. Your measure of success becomes the gap between who you were yesterday and who you are today. And that shift removes the pressure to prove anything to the outside world. It brings your focus inward where real transformation begins. Results don't lie. They reflect your habits, your consistency, your willingness to stay the course. And the best part is that results compound. You may start small, waking up early, eating better, putting in extra hours, staying off distractions. But over time, those small decisions build something bigger. They create momentum. And that momentum becomes your identity. You start to see yourself differently. You start to carry yourself with more confidence, not because someone told you you're doing well, but because your actions are aligned with your intentions. Even when the results are slow to appear, the impact of your effort is never wasted. You build strength in the silence. You build patience in the process. And eventually those results show up not just in outcomes, but in who you become. People begin to notice. But by then, the recognition is secondary because you've already won something greater, your own self-respect. Excuses ask for understanding, but results speak for themselves. They don't need a backstory. They don't need an explanation. They reflect choices day after day when no one was watching. And while others may never know the full story behind what it took, you will. That's what matters. Not the image, not the performance, but the person you've built quietly with effort, honesty, and persistence. If you make it your mission to become someone you admire, the rest will follow. You won't need to convince anyone of your value. It will be obvious in how you show up, in what you create, and in the consistency of your work. That's what earns respect. Not what you say, but what you've proven over time. Excuses fade, but results remain. So forget being seen. Focus on becoming. Because when you're proud of the work you've done and the person you've become, you've already succeeded. The truth is, nobody owes you recognition, and nobody is obligated to understand your journey. The world is not waiting to cheer you on. It's waiting to see what you'll do with what you have. And once you accept that, you stop performing for approval and start building for purpose. You begin to focus on what truly matters. The effort you put in when no one is watching, the discipline you maintain when motivation disappears, and the choices you make when the easy way out is calling your name. This isn't about proving anything to others. It's about proving to yourself that you are capable, consistent, and committed. When you stop expecting the world to care and start caring deeply about your own growth, everything changes. Because success doesn't come from being seen, it comes from becoming someone you can respect. So work hard, stay focused, own your path, and remember your results will speak long after the noise fades.